Hi,
Hi, Nicola.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Yeah.
So today, yeah, we are going to talk about schedules, the wild ass schedules of a first responder um and their partners and how I mean, we're going to talk about, right, like some of the common struggles that I think we've faced and
Yeah.
also have heard other people face, and then what has worked for us because the thing that like the resounding lesson I think that I've taken away is that you have to figure out what works for your family, right? Everyone's
Yeah.
situation is so different.
Yeah. It's all a little different. Some people have kids, some people don't. Some people are single and their schedule, they could be a caregiver of a parent or something like that. And it just like really changes just the way that, life happens every day. So, yeah.
Exactly. Um, so I told you I was gonna kind of just share a little bit about what we have going on our end over here.
Right.
And I think it's very apropos for our conversation because so recently my wife changed positions and is now in a different unit, and life looks very different. And in this particular position, there's less demand for like overtime. It's a much more like stable schedule, which is so lovely.
I was gonna say that's probably been great for the past however long as she's been in that position, right?
Yeah, it's been mostly good. The big downside that we are, dealing with is the fact that they have her on 5/8 on midnights versus the 4/10s that we've gotten used to over the years, which
Okay.
really helps with sanity, right? Because when you're
Yeah.
on midnights, the least amount of days, like, the least amount of shifts per week, the easier on the body and the
Yeah.
schedule and the family. But that, you take your hits, you kind of roll with it. But then she got, and it was very last minute. I think it was either Sunday or Monday of this week, and she was told that she was going to have trial on Tuesday, starting Tuesday, for a case that she had, that she was a part of when she was back in the
Right.
detectives unit. And so
Okay.
it's a really great example of how even when you change positions sometimes in this field or in these careers, um that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like smooth sailing from there.
Right. There's like just challenges that come with every different like schedule that's out there.
Yeah, the
I mean,
demand is so real.
yeah. And I don't want to like compare it to like the normal family, but like, that 9 to 5 job, like both doing maybe that because we do
Mhm.
have both have to work in today's like economy, right? Kids
Mhm.
are in school, you kind of get those evenings and those weekends together, where for us, those are not things, right?
Right. And like
Yeah.
culturally speaking, there's this expectation that we have evenings and weekends together, right?
Right.
And and because of that, I think that there's a lot more pressure to have that schedule because that's when then the broader culture winds up scheduling things, right? It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
getting together for dinner in the evenings, getting together on the weekends for barbecues, right? Celebrating birthdays on Saturdays. It's so it becomes really tricky, I think, on multiple levels when we're trying to coordinate a schedule with our first responder partner and in our first responder family. There's like so many things at play, right? Like we have to
Layers, layers of
adjust
things.
expectations, right? Like make new traditions
Mhm. Yep.
down to like the nitty-gritty details of, well,
Yep.
my job requires, I work this many hours, we have kids, what are we going to do about childcare?
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we have, right? So, like I'm sure right now it's really hard for her because she's probably working her regular shift and going on a trial. What
Yep.
time does that leave for you?
Yep.
Right? And decompress,
Yep.
right? Because that is also important and you're putting that in too. So those schedule I that's got to be rough right now.
It is. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Luckily, I think because there are so many things that we have overcome, when this happens, I notice a shift internally. I notice that it's almost like I batten down the hatches
Yeah.
emotionally, kind
Yeah.
of gird your loins kind of approach.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I know that this means just with this information, right? This means I'm going to be taking on all the house related, home related responsibilities.
Right.
She is going to need to sleep when she's not working.
Yeah.
And then it bleeds into the days off, right? And so she had trial all day yesterday. She has trial all day today.
Mm.
Luckily, last night was her Friday, so she will be able to come home after court in
Okay.
decent traffic. So that's 2 hours.
That's 2 hours, right?
And so we had like a really brief exchange. Like she got home yesterday at about 6:30. She had to
Mm.
go back in, she was like, I'm going in late, which meant she went in at 10.
Oh,
So she came home, slept
right.
until like 10 and then left. But we had this brief conversation, which was really important about, okay, so here's how here's how let's get on the same page about how the next couple days are going to go, right? So we
Yeah.
have some people coming over on Friday night. I'm going to need her help. We agreed, okay, so she'll sleep in X amount of time on Friday, which isn't normal. Usually she would get up with me, but because of all this, she'll
Yeah.
sleep in a bit more. But then it's that compromise stuff that we're always
Yeah.
talking about. And you adjust, you flex, and you roll with it until you
Yeah.
can get through it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely hard, right? So our schedules are very hit or miss too, right? And it depends on also, you throw a bad call in there, it will change your whole schedule.
Yep.
Right? Like that's just going to change everything up. But so our typical day is so my shift for where I work is 2 10-hour days and then 2 14-hour nights. And then we get 4 days off. So my day works, right? I get up, I go to work. Um, my mom comes over and takes my kids to school for us. So having a family, having that village definitely helps, right? Because and then my mom will pick them up from school for us, watch them for a half hour till Steph gets home. I get home at 5:30, 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'm the cook of the family. So I normally come home and make dinner.
I can relate.
And then yeah, and then I go to into my night work, sorry, my night works. So I'll take the kids to school, I'll pick the kids up from school. I get home around 2:45 with the kids. I'm then getting ready for my night work. Stephanie walks in the door. I'm like, "Hey, they've had this snack. Dinner's ready in the crock pot. This is what's happening," and I'm out the door, right? And so that happens for our night works. Um, and due to me being off the 4 days, I'm like as you said, the house caregiver, right? So like I'll do the cleaning, the laundry, like grocery shopping and things like that. Um, but then it comes to swim, right? So my schedule, I miss out on kids swim, right? So our kids go to swim every Thursday. Um, it's awesome. I love it when I can go, but like that burden then becomes on her because of my schedule, right? Um, my daughter has autism and both of them get occupational therapy. So they go to occupational therapy. And again, when I'm at work, she takes them. But that is our little time on Tuesdays when I'm not at work. We get that 1 hour block. And that's where like our communication happens for like the week, right? This is what we're going to be doing because everything else is just so crisscross, right? So yeah.
It's a very intricate web of
Yeah.
scheduling and communication that your
Yeah.
family has created and navigates every week.
Yes, every week, and then you add in, we're going to a friend's house on dinner for Friday, like, we're not this week, I don't think. I have to check the schedule.
Check the schedule.
But I work this Saturday, Sunday, so she's going to visit her grandmother, I think, is on the books for her to do that. Um, but, like so this weekend, there's nothing scheduled, so I miss out on all weekend with my kids and wife, right, because of the way the schedule falls for this week. Um, but that's where we plan the other things in, so it's yeah,
You,
doctor's appointments.
yeah, I think like there was a piece that you were talking about that I want to come back to, which is how the scheduling, like the logistics, then feeds into quality time and
Mhm.
getting really quality time with your partner, getting quality time with your family as a whole, and the importance of that being a part of the schedule. Because honestly, as intuitive as that might sound, I hear a lot of people struggle, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you think about that, and like if you have any ideas of why you think people might struggle. They're like, okay, like, swim lessons, yup, and drop off, and okay, I'll get the bills paid, and I'll make sure and make the phone calls, or shovel the driveway, or whatever it is, right? The
Yeah.
logistics we cover, but so often partners find themselves maybe not focusing or prioritizing scheduling in, like, when are we going to have date night, when are we going to sit and cuddle on the couch, like when are we going to have sex, sometimes is the question, right?
Sometimes it has to be scheduled, right? So I think it's hard for people to do that, right? I think we go from dating couples where we're just spontaneous and we do these things to this life that becomes so routine that maybe we just get caught up in that routine that sitting down and having a conversation about, hey, um, we need to do this. So Tuesday, we took our kids to OT, and instead of, I was like, I need to change up what we're doing on Tuesday. Let's go sit down, have a drink. I had a really bad call on Saturday.
Mm,
Um, I was like, I need to talk to you about it. I'm not giving you the details, but I need to tell you how I'm feeling,
mm,
right? Feeling a certain way, and we need to communicate that because I could see that it was going to affect our scheduling for the next week, right? And the things that we were going to do. So um, I think people are scared to have those conversations sometimes, right? Like the disappointment too, right? Of I can't do that right now because I feel this way, or um, I can't schedule these things in because like I just want to decompress, or I think that we feel like we don't want to disappoint our spouses or our kids by saying no. So I think it
yeah.
just becomes routine, overwhelming, and we just go where sometimes just sitting back and having that conversation and talking about the schedule for maybe do it for the month, right? Like on
Mhm.
these days, these are certain, these things have
Yeah,
to happen,
yeah.
right? Like, so,
I
yeah,
agree. I think that's so important to have those touch points, whether it be weekly or daily or however often you need them to be, to
yeah,
get on the same page. And as you were talking, it made me remember, our past, and how a lot of the time, I think what got in the way of us scheduling quality time and just having really good time together was because there was so much conflict and strife around the struggle and the demand.
yeah,
And I remember there was like a time in our relationship where on our days off together, we couldn't go a day without fighting.
yeah,
And I think that that does relate back to the schedule and the like layers that we're talking about how we have to
yeah,
navigate expectations. We have to navigate differing needs. Like you said, scheduling time to sleep has been pivotal for my
yeah.
relationship. You know,
I mean, and yeah,
her and I know I like put a video out on this specifically recently, so you can catch that on my social media, but the one of the number one fights that we would have was about sleep and how much sleep she wanted. She's always been on midnights, so she's always been extra exhausted, right?
right, because that's just
And
exhausting. I don't know how she does that.
it's, yeah, for sure. But it became this really persistent battle, and we both became really resentful that,
Yeah,
she wanted more time to sleep and I wanted more time with her, and we both, and I think like the analogy that I would use with her would be, we both feel like we're suffocating. How
yeah,
can we give each other more air? Because we
yeah,
we we and trying to find empathy for, you know the struggle we're both going through so that we can coordinate a better schedule that would work. And that led us to like experimenting with scheduling, experimenting with her sleep schedule specifically. What did she want? What did I want? You know, I wanted mornings together. I'm a morning person and I like
Cup of
time.
coffee. Yeah.
What?
Cup of coffee, sit, have a little conversation, like
Just yes, like there's something
yeah,
symbolic to me about starting our day together that's very
okay.
meaningful, right? And
It sounds
so,
amazing. Yeah.
what's that?
I said it sounds amazing.
Right. It like I said, it's a very kind of deep symbolic thing for me. And of course, she's on midnight. She's not much of a morning person, so we differing, right, in that way.
Yeah.
But we experimented with, how could we schedule one day a week where at least one day a week where you get up with me.
Mhm.
And that led to more conversations around, well, then how would we then adjust the schedule leading up to that so that you can feel more rested and willing to get up and not just get up, but like get up without an attitude.
And be present.
Right. Like
Yeah.
willingly getting up.
Yeah.
And so that compromise around scheduling was really, really pivotal for us to be able to find a routine that started to work, started to kind of click. Because I think a lot of times people, when we were going back to talking about how quality time can be really impacted, even when you wind up finding it, if you're fighting, if you're holding resentment, if there's tension, right, then it's not quality time. It winds up being really crappy.
Yeah.
But when you start to find a routine where each person, and I'm just talking about obviously the partners at this point. I know that
Mhm.
it gets more complicated with kids and extra family, but I think when you find a routine that works for both people, there's so much more willingness to be
Right.
flexible and willingness to, like you said, when you have a bad call, you need the routine to adjust,
Yeah.
right? Like there needs to be an adjustment, and your partner, you need your partner to be able to flex with that, and vice versa. So yeah, it's so interesting
It's
how so
interesting.
much bleeds into it.
It does, and, everybody has something different, right? So, you can be single and still have schedule conflicts in this thing, like, even if you're, like, trying to date or, like, trying to get out into the world, there's so much overtime also, so, like, people schedule their overtime in those certain fields,
Mhm.
and that impacts, right? So, like, when I sign up for a call for overtime, I only sign up on Friday nights because then the schedule, right? Because I have to be home at 6:30 in the morning for my wife to leave for work. I have a contingency plan, again, just in case I get a late call, right? But if I'm not out that door at 6:15, that plan goes into place. Um, so Friday nights, because I can work anywhere, that way I don't have to rush home because it's a Saturday. Um, and I don't do 24s because that's
24
insane.
hours shift.
24
Oh,
hours on a shift,
oh,
yeah. So,
that is insane.
lots of people do that, but I do not. And I think it's just, you can be a family caregiver or anything, and just I think you just have to communicate your schedules with your family. So holidays and birthdays, some people that I'm just might not be there, right? And that's come to the realization that I just might not be there.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that I think that's a good segue into something you had mentioned when we were talking about having this conversation, which is that um, kind of stepping outside of the partner schedule, family schedule dynamic, like immediate family, the across the board, I think that there's a real challenge for the people outside of us, right? Like outside of our extended family, our friends, to really
Mhm.
understand. I've seen both personally, like with my wife, but then also with other first responders that I've met, how there just becomes this distance because
Mhm.
your schedule is so demanding and people struggle to understand it. People struggle
Yeah,
to accept it. People can take
yeah,
it very personally that you have not shown up to a gathering in, a year
yeah,
because it's always on a night where you work. And it's like, what are you going to do?
right.
And that can really
Yeah,
affect our support system and our relationships.
yeah, or the expectation that, "Oh, you get done work at 4, just come after that," and it's just like, "I've been up since 4:30 AM," right?
Right. And
Like,
I've
I
seen some
need
shit.
shit, I don't need to be around people right now, like, um, and then that, that's that disappointment you get sometimes, and it's like, again, like, sometimes you go to these things and you're just not present, and then it just causes more distress, and then, you know, yeah, it's definitely tough. So, again, I've got a really good support system and family, and it's just like Christmas sometimes is not on Christmas,
Oh, yeah.
right? Thanksgiving is sometimes not on Thanksgiving, like, ever. So,
My wife and I have an agreement.
and they've come to the realization.
So my wife and I have an agreement that Thanksgiving she takes off because that's my favorite
Okay,
holiday because it's all centered around food. And I'm like, that's the one that I want you home for and like present. And that has been kind of a good compromise. Like she has to take off a year in advance. But that's
right.
become a part of the routine. It's become a part of the routine is that when we're done with our Thanksgiving time holiday this year, then when she goes back to work, she puts in for the next year. And it's kind of funny how routines can span, from a day to a year, like it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to switch
I
gears.
mean, I have
Oh,
okay.
can you hear me okay? I'm losing you a little bit.
You're cutting in and out a little bit.
I'm having that too. Let me see if connecting to my hotspot will help. But can you hear me right now? Nicola?
There you are.
Oh, there you are. Are you back?
Much better.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yay.
okay.
Hotspot to the rescue. So I want to shift gears and I want to talk about what has worked and like the strategies that we've both taken. And I've also got some great feedback. I asked this question to one of my uh Leo spouse support groups and there was like a flood of feedback around this topic.
Awesome.
And so I want to share some of that too. But for you, what has been essential to help your family and your relationship and just you find a routine and a schedule that works?
Um, just talking about it, right? Like, sitting down, like, we know my schedule from now for a year. Like, for the as long as I stay on this shift, I'm good to go, there's no changes. Um, so we can look at the whole year and kind of figure out our vacations and things like that. Luckily, she's a school teacher, so we also get her schedule of days off in a year, so we can kinda schedule I take vacation on her spring break, and then I take 2 weeks in the summer so we can spend as much time together as possible. Um, so, I mean, we sit down kind of when it comes vacation time and things like that, which is November. So I pick November as for my vacations for the year. We sit down, we kind of map it out for a year, and then we just start talking about it. Like, so this month we've got these things. So next month it's the kid's birthday, right? So we've got birthday party, like, and things like that. So we were talking about that in January, right? What scheduling it out. So, and then we kind of touch base weekly on what we do.
So like
Yeah.
consistent
So it goes from
meetings.
big to small.
Right. You're right. But
Yeah.
the common thread there, right, is like finding time to talk
Mhm.
to each other about these things consistently and just constantly having the conversation
Yeah.
around the planning and what might need to change or what's still on the books or whatever.
Yes. And we have a Google Calendar where everything goes in.
Gotcha. Okay. I am still having a little bit of trouble signal wise. Um, are you?
Weird. No.
You're not, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then, is there any logistics that you guys swear by? Like any tools or practices that you swear by outside of the constant communication?
The calendar, the Google Calendar. Um,
All hail.
because all hail the Google Calendar. She, my wife has a little bit of a memory lapse issue sometimes.
So funny, so does
So I'm
mine.
like, check the calendar. Yeah. So she'd be like, no, that's not on there. I'm like, it's on there. So the calendar definitely helpful.
There's always one goldfish and one elephant, right? Um, so the
Yeah.
calendar, right? The shared calendar, color-coded calendar, e-calendar, refrigerator calendar, wall calendar, like that has been the common thread. When I got the feedback on the Facebook group, we also I use multiple calendars. Like, so we use a shared calendar. But I also have a calendar that's on the fridge for a visual because bless her heart, my wife
Yep.
will forget to look at her calendar. She's gotten a lot better at that, but it is very easy for her
It, it's
to
right
forget
here.
to look.
Like, yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
but you have to open up the calendar, and that is hard for some people,
I know.
apparently.
I get it. I get it. I have one.
Yeah. And so yes, calendars galore. I have also found really helpful. A few years back, I purchased this dry erase board adhesive. And so
Okay.
I you can like pull out as much as you want and you can stick it to the fridge or the wall. It used to be on our fridge. It is currently on her bedroom door. And
Oh.
that is something where, yeah. And so specifically, if there's something I need her help with around the house, if I notice that, oh, okay, the dishes, that's her job and they need to be done, I'll throw that on the door. But we also use that to just communicate like kindness appreciation, love notes, things like that. And it's really nice because I will get up, she will already be asleep. I will wake up and I'll pass by her door and I'll see, oh, okay, she says, be up at 4:30, love. And that's
Oh.
what's interesting is like that is communication, right? That's cooperation, that's
Yeah.
scheduling, right? Like in a very short message, it's
Right.
setting expectations about the schedule. I'll be up at this time.
Mhm.
You can expect me to be awake then. If I'm not, you know, you hear my alarm going off incessantly, I might need you to, but it says a
Right.
lot in a little bit, and it's a really helpful tool for us.
Yeah.
The weekly
That's awesome.
couples meetings. Yes, thanks. The weekly couples meetings are vital for us too. And um when it came to the Facebook group feedback, I there was some really definitely some comments that align with everything we've already said that works for us, but there's also some other interesting stuff. So one thing that they highlighted was the need to be flexible to create different routines for rotating shift work, right? So you know what that's all
Yeah.
about.
I know that. Yep.
Your routine highlights this perfectly because you flip-flop from day work to night work, and that requires a different expectation and a different routine.
Absolutely.
I actually had someone, and I know this isn't going to be possible for everyone, but I found it interesting. I never heard of this before. Someone said that they, as a couple with children, they made a conscious decision to, because they were able to, I guess, start homeschooling their children because sending them to school was limiting the family's time together, and particularly the first responders' ability to see and spend time with their kid. So they decided to just, well, they just kept him home, and that offers more time for them to spend together and see each other. I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
Customizable holidays, obviously we talked about this before a little bit, setting expectations that we are going to have to customize our celebrations and make a lot of new traditions that don't necessarily
Yes.
align with what we're used to.
Yes. We definitely need to do that. Yes.
um Scheduling like a couple's day or a family day each week was something that someone else said, which I really appreciated. Can you hear that?
I can't. Yeah.
You can. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. um
I
Talking
don't know.
about another thing was talking about having conversations around possibility for changing a routine or a schedule that really doesn't work for your family. So a lot of times I hear frustration of partners saying like, I can't deal with this anymore. This feels like it's never ending. And I always get curious about, have you guys had a conversation, like a legitimate kind of steady conversation around the possibility of, you know, can you make a shift to a different unit? Can you make a shift to a different shift schedule? And there's a lot of
Yeah.
things
So
at
the only
play.
thing, yeah. So the only thing that I could do with that is I could go to the academy or to support services, and then I'm on day work every day during the week. Um, then I would need somebody to take my kids to school every day, somebody to pick them up every day instead of just those 2 days. And it really reduces my time with them too. So we've also given up Saturday sports. Our kids don't really overly like it. And that was a conversation we had too of like, do we want to continue this stress for right now? And the answer was no.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, priorities.
Yeah. So we have had that talk of because it would be nice to sleep in my own bed every night, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it just doesn't work with the kids' schedule and having them go to school. I mean, and when I am off during the week, it is nice to be able to get up with them, get them ready for school, and take them to school. So
Absolutely.
I
So
like that part. So
so
yeah.
you had those conversations, and then you kind of determine through those conversations what's the most functional approach, right? For you guys it was, well, let's keep this and navigate this as best as we can,
Mhm.
versus the potential of, I know me and my wife have had many conversations around, this topic of changing, applying for a different unit, or
Yeah.
the conversation around changing shifts has never gone too far because she has never wanted to work day work. She's very adamant about that. So
I can understand why.
yeah, well, so these days, I'm sure most people on the first responder end are probably like, mm-hmm. But
Mm.
um,
Yep.
but but what has been interesting is that has evolved. That's something that I used to be very insistent upon. And as time has
Mhm.
gone on, and as I've understood and empathized more with why she feels that way, the conversation sounds more like, it would be nice if one day you could live a normal schedule, and your body could go through the normal rhythms of a day and a night.
Right.
But um maybe one day, but
Maybe one day. Right.
it's up to you. And I'm okay. I found a way to be okay with letting her make that choice, primarily because we have found a
Yeah.
routine that very much works for us, both of us, on her midnight schedule.
Right.
So that has opened up space and willingness for me to say, okay, I don't have to insist on this anymore. I can let there be some room to breathe and let things kind of play out how they will. So,
Right. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we're winding down time, we only have a few minutes left. Is there any kind of final thoughts about this particular topic that you want to highlight or touch on?
I just say, well, talk about it, right? Like, sit down
Mm-hmm.
and talk about it, have a conversation, do what you need to do to also be okay with how it's going, and don't overstretch yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those are honestly my final thoughts. Yeah.
I totally align with that. And I think the only thing I would add is to try and do your best to come together as a team and really
Yeah.
notice how you are approaching the conversation, because what I hear a lot and what I experienced in my own struggles with this was that on the family partner end, it can there can be so much built up resentment around the job that any conversations around scheduling and expectation can quickly blow up into a fight, because it can
Yeah.
quickly come to, why do you have to do this job? You're
Right.
choosing to do this
Yeah.
job. This is a choice. You're choosing not me, not our family, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And we have to be able to come to a place, if we're going to find compromise and find resolution and find happiness and stability for everyone involved, that we have to be able to come together with the mindset that this is the current reality. My partner is a first responder and I want to be with
Yep.
them. It is a choice to be with them,
Right.
and that is a
Right.
choice I'm making today.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a day by day process, but being able to say, if this is the choice I'm making, then I need to commit to compromise and I need to commit to empathizing. And the more willing one person is to do it, the more willing the other partner is usually to do it. And that's how I know we have found a way to come together and figure out a schedule and a routine that respects us both and works for us both. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's been a blast talking to you as
It has.
always.
Always. Yeah.
And I hope that you have a great one, and we'll talk soon.
That sounds amazing. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.